now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me adjust the camera ever so slightly. I hate seeing that window in there. I prefer to see my Cayman Islands flags. Good morning, you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. As you know, we have been dealing with a bit of sad news around here. And we had to tell my daughter last night about Coco. And a lot of people have been calling, and in the neighborhood, I've had a number of persons come and bring flowers, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you guys immensely for your comments and your support. It's been a very difficult loss for sure. And I don't really know. We had her cremated. We decided to have her cremated. And my husband would not allow me to see her because it was that bad, and he didn't want me to have that memory in my head of how of what she looked like. Apparently, after they shaved her down, it was really evident what she had been through. So I'm just glad that she's not suffering because, even if we had her here still, the doctor, Brenda, did say that it would have been multiple surgeries and a very, very long road to recovery. So I think that when you really love someone, when you really love a pet, you understand the need to not make them unnecessarily suffer just because, we want to hang on to them a little bit longer. So she had at least 10 good years. And we just have to be really thankful for that. So again, thank you guys so much. I don't know what we're going to do in terms of, I see Irvin's asking about a service. I haven't really decided if I want to do that because I think especially for my daughter, that's probably going to be difficult for her. She's never, we've never really had to explain a loss or death to her. As you guys know, my father-in-law passed away during COVID, and we didn't really think that she was going to be able to entirely process that. But because he is overseas, it was a lot easier actually to not have her ask about him every day, if that makes any sense. So she still gets to see grandma, and she kind of thinks that grandpa's still there somewhere. But with the loss of a dog that's like an integral part of your household, it wasn't something that we could obviously keep from her. She was constantly asking. Even yesterday, the teacher said that during school, she was just kind of off by herself playing with her Play-Doh. And she said, she just blurted out, Coco died. And I don't know how she knew that because we hadn't told her at that point. But then last night, when some people came over, she was like, oh, Coco's sick. So you could see that she still didn't really fully understand, any of what was going on. So she was asking when was Coco coming back home because she missed her so much. So we had to tell her that Coco, unfortunately, will never be back home. And she started to cry. She did start to cry. And she said, why? What happened? She just doesn't understand. And we just tried to explain to her that, because she saw the fight. She did see the dog fight, unfortunately, at the very beginning. And we just said to her, that the Coco's hurt really, really badly from the dog fight. And unfortunately, she didn't come home, and she's gone to doggy heaven. And of course, she's like, asked them to send her back. So, of course, I had to explain to her that, yeah, that's one thing you don't come back from is death. And, you're trying to do it in an age-appropriate manner. So I said, unfortunately, death is kind of final in a way. So we'll see how she is today. She had a lot of other questions and stuff. And then she's like, can we get another Coco? And I do see that some of you have offered, you've got litters and you've offered to give me a dog. And trust me, I appreciate the sentiment. But when you understand that dogs are so unique and you can never replace one dog with another dog, probably the worst thing you can do is to, in the midst of a loss, try to find something else to replace that. I think you just need to go through the grieving process. One of our neighbors had a really good recommendation to maybe help her with it. She said that, someone had done something similar to her where they gave her a tree that was attached to that loss so that anytime she was upset about it or thinking about it, she could go and spend time with the tree. So something like physical and tangible that is still very much here. So I actually think that's a pretty good idea. I like that a lot. So maybe we'll find a tree to plant in memory of Coco that Gigi can always have in her yard. So I'm going to have a think about what kind of tree and stuff. So thank you guys a lot. I really, really appreciate it. So yeah, Carol, I don't want another dog. And in fact, whenever things like this happen, you feel like you never want another dog. But I've been here before and I know that time heals, and probably eventually we will get another dog. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. Okay, so listen, we've got Alric joining us this morning. It is Thursday, and this is kind of his day to come on the program. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the electors list. And there is a process whereby you can actually go and watch the objection procedure. So the elections office has announced that that is going to be starting here in earnest. So I think Alric wants to talk a little bit about that. Thank you so much, Mary. Mary has been in my life for a really long time. And Mary actually remembers the loss of another dog that I had. He died of just more natural causes. And his name is Rupert. And I tell you what, you just never forget, you just never forget your dogs. I know to some people, they're like, oh, they're just a dog, who cares? And, my dogs are never just a dog. They are a part of our family. And so even when my husband met me, Coco was already here. And I remember him saying to someone just last night, that it wouldn't be an exaggeration for him to say that Coco was like a daughter to him. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I think he's such an awesome person, because he came into my life and he found Coco. And you know what? He just loved her in such an amazing way. And I think I saw that, wow, if someone has that capacity to love my dog and find me with this dog, that this person's going to be an amazing parent. And he has really certainly lived up to that. And he's just a really kind-hearted person. And I must say that even in this situation, it's really, really a tough situation, because the other person will now end up losing both of her dogs as well, which is unfortunate, but there really is no other way to handle the situation. And I'm just hoping that there will be some lessons that come out of all of this, because I think that there has to be something good that comes of this. And I know that some of you have already reached out to me in terms of just, how do we fix some of the issues surrounding dog ownership in the Cayman Islands? And, there've been a lot of instances where people have been injured. And somebody was reminding me last night that when she was a kid, and she's like in her 40s, when she was a kid and younger, that someone got injured really bad at, I think she said maybe Spots Beach or something, where he was literally mauled and had stitches like all in his head. And I didn't know about that situation, but I'm like, how does that happen? And we still not take, these things as seriously as we should. The law needs addressing for sure, because there are some clear holes in the legislation that need to be fixed. So when the time is right, I think we need to have those types of conversations. We need to start educating our people about dogs and dog ownership, responsible ownership, and what that all entails. Of course, things happen, but I think the most dangerous situation to be in is to have a dog that you cannot control. And people always think they can control a dog until you've actually seen a dog fight. And then you know what is required. And if that dog can outpower you physically, I don't think that you should have that dog, because it becomes impossible. And multiple people were trying to control this situation, and we were all very helpless. And in fact, Mary does bring up a point that these dogs actually went and attacked another dog before reaching Coco. And that dog is a full-size lab mix, I believe. And they had that dog pinned down to the porch, apparently, and was probably going to kill that dog. But people were able to intervene. And it took, again, multiple people, and the individual, the neighbor who finally was able to get that dog loose so that he could run for his life, actually had to pry the offending dog's mouth open. And of course, you know how dangerous that is for you to put your mouth or your hand or anything really near dogs when they're fighting. And, I know because I was kicking this dog when he was attacking Coco, trying to do the best that I could. And so, another dog was injured in this situation. And in addition to that, a person was injured as well when she was trying to save that dog. She has bite marks on her leg. So she did have to go to the hospital yesterday and get a tetanus shot. And now she has a dressing for multiple bite marks on her leg. So it has been quite a horrific situation for the entire neighborhood. And I really appreciate my neighbors who have reached out, coming over and bringing flowers and stuff like that, and, expressing their condolences. So, and I'm also sorry for the loss of, despite the circumstances, of the lady who owned those two dogs, because I'm sure until that moment she thought she had great dogs that maybe were not capable of that. I don't know if she'd ever put her mind to it, but, she'd said in the past that they were not ever really socialized properly. And when I heard her say that years ago, as we moved in, I thought to myself, it's unfortunate that when people say that, it's unfortunate that for a dog that they don't know what that means. When you say a dog isn't properly socialized, this is what the end result will be. It's not like a human being, even though some of us, if we're not properly socialized, we become destructive. We will harm other people. People who are dysfunctional and not properly socialized, folks, they become serial killers. They become, narcissistic, psychotic individuals because at a very young age, they didn't have the proper environment, the proper love, and so on that they needed. And when you say that about a dog doesn't have the choice to say, oh, wow, I didn't get the benefit of proper socialization when I was a puppy. let me go see a therapist. That's not exactly how it happens. So that's where the responsibility now lies on us as dog owners to recognize the importance of proper socialization. I mean, every single dog that I've had, I get them at 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. I ensure that my dogs are out and about, they're around people, they're around different situations, they get to see at different animals. One of the things that Coco used to do all the time is when she would see a dog from a distance, she would bark a lot because it was like excitement. But some people, when they heard that, like human beings might think, oh, that's aggression. And it was never aggression. And I knew that. But despite that, I would always try to curtail her barking. I always try to bring her under control with it and try to allow her to walk up to a dog, properly so that they can do their assessment of each other and their sniffing out and whatever. And trust me when I tell you, there's an educational process that you have to engage in as a responsible pet owner. I have sat down and watched countless videos about dog ownership, how to own a dog, how to work with a dog, how to look at the signs of, what's going on with dogs and interacting with people. And most people might feel like they don't want to be bothered with any of that stuff. And what I would say, if you don't have the time or you don't want to be bothered with that, then you just simply shouldn't own a dog. And it's as simple as that. It doesn't make you a bad person. Not owning a dog does not make you a bad person. Not owning a pet doesn't make you a bad person. I think that if you own them and you don't do these things, then you become irresponsible pet owner. And it's just a recipe for these types of things to happen. So, this neighbor is a nice person. She's doing the right thing. She's going to take care of the vet bills. She's going to take care of the injured parties, their hospital bills and all this sort of stuff. And, now she's found herself in an unimaginable situation as well. I agree with Carol. Carol, that's one of the things that needs to be addressed in the legislation, because the way that it is now, if the pet owner does not relinquish their dog, DOA can't even take the dog. The police have to go through this whole preparing the file, getting it ready for legal, going through. And, those processes can literally take years. I mean, let's be honest. And in the meantime, the dogs are still on the loose. Catherine says plenty of dogs in East End like that, so afraid to walk in her area. Unbelievable. So yeah, unfortunately, I think we need to have a no tolerance policy when it comes to a vicious dog. If a dog attacks, in my mind, anything, even if it's a rabbit or a chicken, you have to understand what that means about the disposition of that dog from the perspective of someone who is in the world of dog ownership, right? And there have to be measures that are taken. And everybody thinks, oh, I can tie up my dog, I can put them in a cage, I can, but it only takes that one time, just like Monday night. It only takes that one time for your dog to find a way out. And then, people's lives have been changed forever. We've only got an hour this morning because I am watching a particular case with keen interest. There was supposed to be a sentencing hearing yesterday, but it was put off until early this morning. So I do want to try to go and watch that if possible. So let's go ahead and bring Alric into the conversation. Good morning, Alric. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and sorry to hear about your dog. So you mentioned some changes need to be made to the law. Like what kind of changes do you think?
Well, I mean, the first one that I just mentioned, and I do want to say that, I'm not an expert, but I do know for years now that government has been talking about the fact that this particular animal law and legislation surrounding it is supposed to be looked at and reviewed, and it hasn't been a priority for them. It hasn't been done. But one of the immediate changes is that when a dog is involved in an incident, I think we have to have a no second chances policy. Someone was telling me last night about another set of dangerous dogs that had been confiscated. The person went to court and simply paid a fine and then got the 3 or 4 dogs back to run havoc again. I'm thinking, how does that resolve anything? That hasn't addressed the issue at all. So I think that I want to put my mind to this at some point. I don't know that I'm intellectually capable of doing that right now. But I think mandatory confiscation, and yep, they're going to have to put some dogs down, putting a stop to this backyard breeding situation, because we have a lot of people who are breeding vicious breeds and breeding vicious dogs just to make a quick buck off of them, to make some money. Especially around the Christmas holidays, you see so many dogs up for sale. And then, they end up in homes where people are not ready for the responsibility of ownership, because it's very much akin to the responsibility of having a child. And then these dogs become neglected and so on. And I think there just has to be more of an investment in money into this area of the Department of Agriculture. So for forever, they've only had the one animal control officer. Now he finally has an assistant. I don't know why it's taken this long, to be honest. It used to be Miss Maggie, I think it was Baldino for many years. And then it was Eric Bodden, and Eric now finally has an assistant. But there has to be more money also invested in that area, because those guys are overworked. I mean, even as they were here talking to me on Monday, they were getting other calls on their phones about another incident, another situation. And I also think that there has to be a general educational campaign that happens with people, and it should start as part of our school program, Alric. Let's be honest, not everyone grows up in a home where they have the benefit of having the love of a pet and seeing how dogs should be treated. And so the only way that we can hope to sensitize people and educate people is through that process. And there'd be nothing wrong with adding that to the curriculum at schools on how to be a responsible pet owner, and the things that involves and the things that entails. And then also offer it ongoing as part of neighborhood development programs that the RCIPS in conjunction with DOA has. And I understand that our RCIPS officers used to get training from the animal welfare officers, and that has been stopped. I don't know why that has been stopped over the last few classes of inductees for the RCIPS for new officers. But I think that needs to be continued. There's so many things that are just running through my head in terms of programs that are available that could really, be useful and instrumental in us trying to come together as a community and be more responsible pet owners as a whole. So a lot of people think that, people only have inside dogs because, they think that they're of a certain social caliber or whatever, and it has nothing to do with that. I mean, I've had larger dogs that were 35, 65 pounds, and they were still inside dogs, because I don't personally believe that a dog should be out in the wilderness, to fend for itself, and the heat, the rain, the whatever, that's the elements that are outside. So I think there are a number of issues, and other people have reached out to me that want to start having this conversation. Of course, there are people who are well versed, such as the existing animal care facilities, whether it's the Humane Society, One Dog at a Time. These agencies already are in that space, and they do a wonderful job. I'm just here to try to say this is what my experience has been, and maybe try to elevate this conversation to a more public level, because I know those people are in the trenches every day, and they see it. They see the neglect, they see the abuse, and everything that happens on a daily basis. And I got to tell you that one of the officers connected to it said to me that when they saw the report on Tuesday morning, they had a moment when they said, "Oh my God, do you see the name on this report?" And somebody else said, "Yeah, it's Sandra Hill." And they said, maybe we can finally get some attention brought to this, because we've been saying forever, what is it going to take? Who's going to be the person that this is going to happen to before we say we need to fix this? And, it kind of made me think of last week, Thursday, during my sentencing hearing, we had, Chris Saunders saying, the system doesn't work. He said justice and the court system don't always go together. And a lot of times they realize that things that should be handled by the police, by the DPP's office, just isn't. And it gives people in the community a sense that the system just doesn't work. Charles Whitaker said the exact same thing. Charles is like, when the system fails, people will take action. They will do things. And the judge is like, what are you saying? Are you saying that you believe in vigilantism? And Charles said, listen to me. If the system doesn't work, I'm the type of guy who believes in protecting my family at all cost through any means necessary. And I think the judge was in such a state of disbelief that he asked the question again. In my mind, he didn't need to be asking that question. He needed to be wondering, why is the system not working? Why are people getting up every single day and feeling so disenfranchised in terms of the judiciary even, and the police and the system not working, that they would even think about the possibility of taking matters into their own hands? That's a little bit of a side discussion, but it's all interconnected and it's all tied in to how we see justice and how we see things working. So Alric, it's an unfortunate situation. I'm not trying to be the champion in every single thing, but I do recognize that people understand the power of this format, this medium, Cayman Law Road, highlighting issues, reaching thousands of persons. And if my opinion can somehow, help somebody else, then, as difficult as that may be, maybe that's the one good that could potentially come out of this. So I know that that's not what you're here to discuss, certainly, but let's talk about why you're here, Alric.
I mean, it's the same reason I'm here, is because it's only through a medium like this that people can learn more about what the law actually says. And maybe it'll be good one day if you can get someone on who knows about that animals law to kind of explain what it currently says and what the issues are with it and how it can be improved. Because while we have members of parliament that go to England and have the Constitution amended to change the name from LA to LA to Parliament, there are other things that need our attention. For example, what you just mentioned, about animals. Animals are part of people's families, and they're seen as a member of the family. So when someone has that loss, it's a heavy loss for people. So very important to when things, especially when things happen because there are holes in laws and people suffer because there are holes in laws. It's very important for us to then go back and look at it, discuss with our representative, if that person is available, and try to get that representative to go to Parliament on our behalf to bring the issues to the attention of the other representatives to see if we can get some change. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, is to talk about the issues with the Constitution that we have right now that has led to so many Caymanians being threatened to be removed from the voters list. And as many people know, you could get removed from the voters list because someone in your electoral district can file a complaint, file an objection, and they will file those grounds for objection with the registering officer. So every electoral district will have a registering officer, and basically a registered officer will then send a notice out objecting to your name being on the voters list. And as I understand it, the registering officer has to have a reasonable belief that you are not entitled to be on the list. This is very scary because the fact that anyone can just object to you being on the list is very scary, number one. And number two, the requirement that a person be in Cayman at least 2 years out of the last 4 years is also an outdated rule under the Constitution. You know, our issue in Cayman is, so that people understand, the Constitution is our highest document in Cayman. So we have to go by what it says. And if there's a law that's not compatible with the Constitution, then the courts will get involved and declare that provisions of a law or a whole law is incompatible with the Constitution. Then it's up to Parliament then to decide what changes have to be made. So the people who are listed on this list of objections that has gone out, and I think it's on the elections website, electionsoffice.ky or elections.ky. The reason given for their removal from the voters list is a section under the Constitution, which is 91B4. 91B4 says that you have to be in Cayman for at least 2 years out of the last 4 years since registration. The only way you can fight this is if you can prove to the elections office that you are a student at an educational establishment overseas, or you are a patient at a hospital. So it doesn't include your son or your daughter being a patient at a hospital, which is the case in at least one of the voters' case, who's taking care of his son overseas because the right treatment can't be available in Cayman. So because he has to take care of his son overseas, the exemption only applies to his son. So you have to be a patient at a hospital. The other one is if you're a crew member on an aircraft. And the other one is if you are carrying out a duty on behalf of the government.
Let's talk a little bit here, Alric, because I think a lot of people don't really fully understand a number of areas of the elections law. Obviously, it's tied into the Constitution. I know the last time you were on the program, a couple weeks back, actually, we discussed some aspects of this. And I did reach out to Mr. What's his name again? At the elections office.
Mr. Supervisor?
Mr. Wesley Howell. And unfortunately, I've not received any response from him about coming on the program and speaking to the people directly. And I don't really know why that is, because of course, getting information out there across all mediums, in my opinion, would be extremely important. So now we're left to try to figure out this stuff on our own when the experts on the elections law, who work in the elections office, who know what legal advice they have and what guidance they've been operated under, could come and clarify a lot of these points. We're kind of left just having the discussion a little bit in a vacuum, in my opinion, because we know, as you said, what people are experiencing. We've seen the letters because they have come to you with the objectors' letters, and we have seen those things. So we do know that it is definitely happening. As you mentioned, there's one individual in particular whose child is a special needs child. And so they do have to go overseas for treatment. Now, one of the things that is in the elections law is this registering officers. Can you give us a definition, a very brief definition of what a registering officer is, what their role is? And then I want us to go through, because now that we have single member constituencies, a lot of people may not even know who their registered officers are. So I do want to go through and provide the names and contact numbers of all registered officers and what districts they are responsible for, so that if anyone has any questions, I suppose once we hear what the role of the registering officer is, they can certainly contact those individuals. The reason why this conversation at this particular time is so important is because we have a deadline that is looming coming up for January the 4th, when all of this has to be sorted out. If you're not on the list properly for January the 4th, the list of electors, it's the official list of electors, you will not be able to vote in the May 26, 2021 election, even by absentee or mail-in ballot. So this is why we're having this discussion leading up to that, and why it's extremely important that people know, they understand aspects of the elections law, they know what pertains to them, and they ensure that they are in a good position to be able to vote come May the 26th. You know, I overheard someone having this conversation yesterday, because oftentimes I hear people say all the time, oh, you know, they're upset with the lack of representation. They don't like what they see. And the natural response for them is to simply not participate in the process, to not vote. They're like, oh, I'm never going to vote again. And I'm thinking, sometimes not doing something, that is still a choice. And in my opinion, that's never the right choice. Like, there should be someone who's running in your constituency that you can look at and say, this may not be the perfect candidate, but if they have 80% of what I'm looking for, and the most important thing should be that they're the type of person who really genuinely care about the issues facing this country, care about the people in this country, and want to seek to find resolutions to those things. If that's the caliber of individual that you're looking for, then in my mind, you have a responsibility to go out there and cast your vote in their favor. Because as we saw in the last election, it does not, now with one man, one vote in particular, it really doesn't take much for an individual to win or lose an election. So if you care about them winning, you should care about making sure that your vote counts. So I just want you to give a definition here of who the registered officers are, what they do, and then we'll go through the list. Thank you so much, Mary, for that comment. I do appreciate exactly what it is you're saying. I think sometimes the comments on my screen come in a little bit later. But yeah, so tell us, Alric, what is a registering officer?
So basically, a registering officer is, in this particular case, is going to be the person that, if you are a voter and you object to someone else being on the list, this is the person that has been appointed for your particular electoral district to sort of check that the register is correct, and to object to any person that they feel is not entitled to be on that register. And so the government has actually provided all the names of the registered officers. And the reason this is important is because, according to government press release, the hearings will begin today, which is 3rd December. So the hearings are supposed to be 3rd to 8th of December. And you're meant to contact your registering officer to discuss why your name is on the list of voters that are threatened to be removed. All the hearings are meant to be held at the elections office and Baytown office suites across from the wharf. So the hearings that will take place on the 3rd and 4th of December, according to the elections website, are for Georgetown West, Georgetown Central, Georgetown South, Georgetown North, Georgetown East, Red Bay, and Prospect. Those are the hearings for 3rd and 4th of December being held at the elections office. So in terms of who the registering officers are, for West Bay, the name of the registering officer is Bethany Powery. That number is 516-4402. The email is wbro@elections.ky. In relation to Georgetown, all of Georgetown, Red Bay, and Prospect, the registering officer is Catherine Miles. The number is 516-2117. The email is gtro@elections.ky. For Savannah Newlands, Bordentown West, Bordentown East, the registering officer is Carrie Nixon. The number is 516-4478. The email is btro@elections.ky. For East End, the registering officer is Lisa Welcome. The number is 516-4647. The email is eero@elections.ky. For North Side, the registering officer is Patricia Ebanks. The telephone number is 516-4349. The email is nsro@elections.ky. For Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, the registering officer is Ellen Lazari. The number is 516-5307. The email is cblcro@elections.ky. So the reason that I'm giving out the details of registering officers is that if you are on this list and you are being threatened to be removed from the voter registration list, you should contact your registering officer or contact the elections office at 949-8047. Why is this important? Because starting today, which is the 3rd of December, according to the information on the government website, there will be hearings starting today held at the elections office where a judge will be present, and the judge is going to look at the list, and the judge is going to hear reasons why you should not be removed from the voter list.
Alric, do we, sorry to interrupt, but do we have any idea of how many people are being objected to? Has any of that information been provided?
So yes, that list is on electionsoffice.ky.
Okay.
And I believe the number is 150. It's around 150.
Notice of claims and objections updated November 25th. Okay, so let's just have a look at this document. And does this actually name the individuals?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm just having a quick look at this. Let me just show people what this looks like, because again, I think a lot of us are not entirely familiar with this process. So just give me 1 second to do a bit of a screen share so that we can see this. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Yes. Okay. So let me just pull this up full screen. All right. So here it is. This is a list, folks. Notice of claims and objections. It's a 40-page document. And it says on their website that this was last updated November the 25th. So it does have the October 20th revised list of electors. And so you should have, if you're on this list, you should have been served notice that you're on this list and that your eligibility is being questioned by someone. So they have a revision notice, which is Form 10 here, signed by the Honorable Nova Hall. She's a magistrate with the court, and she's the revising officer. So she will be the person that we were just talking about that will actually be at the elections office during the course of this week. And the details of that, let me just see if I can, I've shared the link already in the description, but it has all of she's a chief magistrate, by the way. So it has all of the days that she will be there over the coming, until the 8th of December. So the process starts today for pretty much Georgetown. So if you're Georgetown West, Georgetown Central, Georgetown South, Georgetown North, Georgetown East, Red Bay, and Prospect, at 10 o'clock today and tomorrow, she's going to hear all hearings or all objections of the persons on this list, these 40 pages. So you see how it says here, let me just see. So that's Form 10. Right. So then it goes into the note of qualifications to be registered as an elector. So it talks about what you need. In other words, how do you qualify to vote in this country? So subsection 91B of the Cayman Islands Constitution Order, Schedule 2 says that number one, you have to be a Caymanian. Of course, that's defined within other areas of the law. You must, second thing, have obtained the age of 18 years of old. 18 years of age, And the third one is you must be resident in the Cayman Islands at the date of registration. I think this is where a lot of people now, it's number 3 and 4 that becomes a potential problem. And the fourth one is you has been resident in the Cayman Islands for a period or periods amounting to not less than 2 years out of the 4 years immediately preceding the date of registration. And otherwise qualified, and number C. So this is what it looks like, folks. These are the notices of claims and objections, and they have them by district. And then you can see the names. So for West Bay Central, the following is up. Michael Delano Hislop of 25 Courtyard Drive, occupation student, and he is being objected to. Now, I always thought, and this is one of the reasons I would love to have Mr. Wesley on here to clarify this, I always thought that students were exempted from that being considered a break in their residence because they are off, not just students, but people who are off doing like secondments and stuff like that, Caymanians who are furthering their education. And the reason why I thought that that was the case was because, as you guys will remember, there was a huge case with Tara Rivers where her eligibility to run for public office was challenged. And one of the things that they had to look at, as well as Alric, actually, his eligibility was also challenged in the last election. And one of the things that they looked at is whether or not they were off, were they actually resident in the Cayman Islands, although they were abroad studying or abroad for work or secondment purposes. And I think in both of those instances, the courts found that they were eligible to run for public office because in one instance, although Tara was overseas working, they saw that as an extension of her being a student. So I think there's some questions here. Alric, correct me if I'm wrong in my interpretation from what you understand, but there's some questions here about what qualifies as, resident, ordinary resident on the island and how that kind of works. So we see here, for West Bay South, there's someone on here who's a therapist, Dorothy Edwina Dugan. There's Jenny Elaine Henning, who is a student at community college, and the list goes on. There's a lady here who is a secretary. Crystal Teresa Hennings is a lawyer. William Ashvin Murugesi is a student. So there's quite a number of students on here, which I'm a bit surprised to see, given the fact that they're probably still overseas studying. But it covers the gamut. Patricia Bryan is a receptionist. So Patricia is actually Kenneth Bryan's sister, and Patricia's lived overseas for quite some time. So finally, someone is challenging her eligibility. It says the address that they have on record is 64 Elgin Avenue, and she's a receptionist. There's Ethel Arch, who is an office manager. Frank Flowers Jr. is on the list, and he's a filmmaker. So this is incredibly interesting. Tawny Ferenez, senior events coordinator. And a lot of these things actually these names are familiar because we know Cayman is very small and we know these people. Julia Coe, but isn't she back? Isn't Julie back living in Cayman? She was on the radio station, right? I think that's who that is. Naomi Hansen, another student. Danielle Pinedo, she's a paralegal, it says here. Shane is a flight dispatcher. Clyde Whitaker. So there's a whole family here. Danielle and Shane, unless that's a repeat of those two, because it says paralegal and flight dispatcher. Yeah, it looks like they kind of repeated those two. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, so it goes through all of the different districts, folks. So it would be a good idea for you guys to double check your information. Here's Delphia. Remember Delphia Brown? We know that she's lived overseas for a minute. Support specialist. They're trying to move her from the list, so she's not going to be able to vote. Glenn Dakin, isn't he? I thought Glenn was actually in Cayman, but I know that Glenn was actually on the ICTA board at one point. So he's on the list to be removed. Yvonne McField. Everybody knows Yvonne as Mousy. She's on the list to be removed. So these are definitely people that we know. Mitzi Walton. So I think there is a question here of really trying to understand what makes them eligible when it comes to residency, being resident on the island, sections 3 and 4 of that section of the law. So what would you recommend in light of the fact that we can't get Mr. Howell on the program? What would you recommend, Alric, for anyone who finds that their name is on this list? Obviously, if they're overseas, they can't physically show up tomorrow. I mean, that's not going to be possible.
Well,
Okay.
So according to the news release, the hearings start today, December. So that's certain parts of Georgetown. So those people will probably not be represented properly because, number one, how do we know all those people were contacted as set up in elections law? How do you know if they actually understood the reason for the objection? Was it explained to them? How do we know that they understand how to respond if they know what the Constitution says about what their defense would be? When we talk about ordinary residence is actually defined under elections law. So number one, it says for the purposes of voter registration, a person can only have one ordinary residence. And it goes on to say that the ordinary residence of a voter shall be the street address of that voter, being the place where the voter ordinarily lives while resident in the Cayman Islands. So the ordinary residence of a voter is the street address of that voter where he or she ordinarily lives when in the Cayman Islands. So the next point is what you're talking about is the objection. If you look at the notice of objections that you showed all the viewers, you notice that the reason for the objection is 91B4. What does 91B4 mean? 91B4 is a reference to the Constitution, which is why it's so important that Constitution is taught in schools and the implications. And so in this case, like you said, if the people are away from Cayman for too long, and the rule is if you're out of Cayman at least 2 years out of the last 4 years since registration, then the elections office will raise an issue. And when you talk about how you can defend yourself and what you should say to your registering officer to show that you should stay on the list, the exemptions are, like you say, you correctly stated, attendance as a student at an educational establishment. So if some of these people on the list are actually students, then they have to then prove to the elections office that they are actually attending as a student at an educational establishment. So you are correct. I'm not sure why students would be receiving this notice of objection if the government is already aware that they're away at school, especially if they have scholarships that can be easily confirmed. Now, one of the things is, it's like I said, it's unclear whether people actually are aware of these exemptions. The other thing you can tell your resident officer is that you are performing a duty on behalf of the government. And the other thing you can tell your registered officer is that you are attending as a patient at a hospital, a clinic, or other medical institution. The next thing you can say is that you are employed as a seaman on an ocean-going vessel, or you were employed as a crew member on an aircraft. As you can tell, Sandy, some of these provisions are outdated, because who is going to be a seaman on board an ocean-going vessel these days? So it is so important that we look at the Constitution and think to ourselves, does it need any changes for modern times? For example, what about the person that travels for business development or marketing for a big company to Dubai, and they're traveling all over the world, for their company? What if they're out of Cayman so many days that when the elections office actually counts the days, then it's held against them? So if the number of days that they're out of Cayman marketing and doing business development, if those exceed the amount, which is 2 years out of the last 4 years, then they're going to get a notice of objection also. So I think that the elections law needs to be amended to cover people like that, and also to cover the gentleman who's overseas taking care of his son now. If the medical attention is not available in Cayman, or proper care isn't available in Cayman, if it's a complex procedure or something along those lines, you should hold it against the parent for going overseas and making sure his or her child is taken care of. That shouldn't be held against the parent. And saying this is because it's a defense to say that you are a patient attending a hospital, but it's not a defense under the Constitution to say that you were with a patient caring for a patient. So, Sandy, I mean, you rightly stated, education is one of the exemptions. And we have a lot of Caymanians like Mousie, like you mentioned, that have gone to England to better herself, to get international experience in the UK, so that when she comes back to Cayman, she can say, I have international experience, because this is what the businesses in Cayman ask for. They say, once you have your degree, they say, so before you have your degree, they say, well, you don't have a degree. And then when you get a degree, they tell you, you have to have experience. And then when you get the experience, they tell you, you have to have international experience. And so we have a lot of Caymanians who couldn't get jobs in Cayman. And so they went overseas and started working to get that international experience that they were told to get. And lo and behold, when it comes to voting, that is now held against you. And I think that all of us really need to contact our representatives and ask, why is it that they could go to London and get a change in name from Legislative Assembly to Parliament and could not get amendments that would enhance the voting rights of Caymanians? Now, the ignoring voting rights is nothing new to the government, to be honest, because when you look at the CPR group and how they won that people-initiated referendum for the cruise birthing facility, they won that right for the people to have a vote. But as you know, the government is saying that that referendum was in relation to a specific project, and so they're not going to allow the vote. In fact, you should push your representative to make sure that that referendum vote happens on election day. But getting back to this issue about people being removed from the list, like I say, according to the government website, those hearings start today. So you need to contact your registered officer today. Contact the elections office today, because it says that the time of the hearing for Georgetown West, Georgetown Central, Georgetown South, Georgetown North, Georgetown East, Red Bay, and Prospect. The hearings are supposed to be 3rd and 4th of December, starting at 10 a.m. And the place is Elections Office, which is Baytown Office Suites, across from the wharf. A lot of people think that Elections Office is still on Smith Road. It's not. The Elections Office moved. It is across from where the Wharf restaurant is in Baytown Office Suites. So you walk straight in, you walk all the way down, and the Elections Office is on the right. So it's really important. Sandy, honestly, I don't know if people will be allowed to attend the hearing via Zoom. I don't know if all these people on this list are aware that they're on the list. I don't know if they know what their rights under the Constitution are to defend themselves. Like the list we just mentioned, I don't know if they're aware of that list. I really wonder if this whole process is fair to Caymanians. And in my view, as long as you're a citizen, you should be able to vote, generally speaking. Either they need to remove this requirement. Either remove this requirement that you have to be in Cayman at least 2 years out of the last 4 years, or you raise the number of years. So you say, if you're out of Cayman 15 years, then they may consider removing you from the list, obviously after discussing with you the reason that you're actually away. I just think 2 years out of the last 4 years, Cayman, I think that's a little too quick for someone from a list. And I hope that the aggressive approach taken by the government in this case to remove people, they take the same aggressive approach to add people to the list, because it's concerning to me that, we say we live in a democracy, and yet we are out there trying our best to remove citizens from a voting list, from a democratic process. That disturbs me. To me, they've done nothing wrong. They're just overseas trying to better their lives. That's what we were told, right? We were told to go overseas and get this experience. And as you can see, I mean, Moussa contacted me, and my friend Amy contacted me. Other people contacted me with a notice saying, like, what is this? Like, I've never seen something like this before. And how do they have the power to send it to me?
Right.
And yeah, so a lot of Caymanians are actually confused. And if you're not on the list now, it doesn't mean that they're not going to put you on the list later. So don't assume. Look at the list that Sandy posted. Check if your name is on that list. Do not assume that you are on the voters list. You must contact your registering officer, contact the elections office, 949-8047. Like I say, hearings are 3rd to 8th of December, according to the government news. The first hearings start today. So 3rd and 4th of December, starting at 10 a.m. at the elections office. Today, the hearings would be for all of Georgetown, Red, and Prospect. Really important, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to find out later on that you've been removed from the list. You don't want to show up at election day thinking, you're going to vote for this person and that person.
Yeah.
You get the surprise, Sandy. You get the surprise that you're not actually on the
That's
list.
like this young lady, Kamala Murugesi, I think they might have their last name misspelled. But anyway, Kamala, I think she just had a baby and she's actually either in quarantine or coming back soon, because I saw her post something recently on social media about looking for some stuff for the baby while she's here. So they've got her on the list as someone who potentially can be removed. There's Erin Marshall on the list. They've got her communications and marketing manager. They even have a supermodel on the list who, a couple retirees. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea for people to definitely check this list to see where they are on here. And if they're going to be removed, that they're at least fully aware of that. Amy Watson, listings controller, she's on here as well. Some very familiar names: Perry Tibbetts. So Kennedy Panton, a pilot. Okay.
Yeah. So
Savannah.
So Amy was one of those people that actually went overseas to listen. She worked hard, promotion in Cayman, went overseas and got a promotion. That's amazing, right?
Yep.
So
Stuart Bostock. Stuart, if you're listening, you're on the list for Savannah. Yeah, it's quite a list. I mean, I put the link in the comment section, and I would invite people. Lloyd McBean, of course, I know Lloyd. I'm just going through the list with interest because a lot of these persons I do know. Very interesting. So listen, Alric, we've got to end the program a little bit early today because, as I said from the onset, there is a case that I'm watching with interest. So I've got to go to court and watch that and do a little bit of court research. Can you just give us a little brief synopsis of what you've been up to during the last week that you've been, I think actually we missed last week because of my sentencing hearing. So give us an idea over the past 2 weeks, what you've been up to in Georgetown South. What are some of the issues that continue to be brought to your attention by your constituents? And I'm sure that you guys are probably starting to get ready for Christmas now. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what we can look forward to in the coming weeks from you as well.
So to give you an example of what my day is like, the mornings are spent just doing my regular work, sending emails, trying to catch up. And by 12 o'clock, I usually have a meeting, whether that's with a company or a constituent. For example, I have a meeting at 2 o'clock today with a large company to discuss issues in the community. Normally, between 12 and 4, I continue meetings. And from about 4 o'clock to about 8 o'clock, I go door to door and talk to constituents. So if you live in Georgetown South and you just want to have a conversation about what's going on in your community, send me a WhatsApp. A WhatsApp is a little better, so I can manage the messages a little better and then contact you. My WhatsApp number is 926-1688. WhatsApp just allows me to organize the messages a little better and then organize meetings with people a little better. So initially, just give me a shout on WhatsApp and we can chat. So in regards to issues, one of the major issues that has been brought to my attention is Caymanians losing their homes. And it's amazing to me that obviously there's responsibility on all sides. So, if you have to maintain your home, you have to maintain your payments, et cetera, et cetera. But we do know that there are circumstances that some people face that are tough. They might have lost their job. They may be getting what some Caymanians are telling me in the hospitality industry is that they're now getting less hours or less days at their work. And so they're not making the same amount of money. And so they might not be able to meet certain bills. So there are some cases where people are being threatened with eviction. And it's very interesting that, a person would get threatened with eviction at Christmas. To me, that's really rough. I mean, like I said, there's responsibility on all sides, but to evict someone around Christmas, it is a little rough. So that's one of the issues that is being faced by some of the constituents in Georgetown South. One of the other issues is, there are small businesses in Georgetown South that have to go through a lot of red tape, or they just haven't been assisted with solutions for their business. For example, my friend told me that, her trade and business license my friend George himself said her trade business license took about 3 months to get processed. Now, I know that people will say because of COVID, there are a lot of delays, et cetera, et cetera. That's one issue, that delay that some people are experiencing getting their T&B licenses. Another issue is not getting a T&B license at all, after inquiring for probably over a year. So in relation to some people that, they just have a low income, or poor people that, they just want to do the right thing, have their own business. They don't want to rely on government or NAU for any handouts. They actually want to start their own business. But then sometimes for small business in Georgetown South, in all of Cayman actually, there's a lot of red tape. So all these documents you got to fill out. And then when you fill out the documents, you come back and they tell you got to do something else. And then you got to get health inspection, fire inspection, all these inspections. Then you got to find someone who can prepare those documents for you. And sometimes the small business can't afford the legal fees to prepare those types of documents.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that facilities have to be, more facilities have to be made available, readily available for some of the small business owners, because it's really tough when you want to make some money and take care of your family, and all you get is red tape, or I'm going to look at this, I'm going to look at that. So some small businesses just want to do the right thing, and they're not being allowed to do the right thing because the process is just so cumbersome, or there's so much delay, or they're just being ignored.
Okay. Well, Alric, thank you so much, as always, for coming on every Thursday morning, folks. You can find Alric here on the program leading up to the next general election. He's obviously a candidate for Georgetown South, so of course we want to make that very clear. And Alric is using this time to discuss some of the issues that he says is important because the people are bringing them to him. So again, if you're in Georgetown South in particular, you can reach out to Alric. His WhatsApp number is scrolling on the screen, as well as his email address. He said WhatsApp is always the best way of making initial contact. So by all means, folks, please do that. So today is Thursday. We're expected to have an evening show at 7 o'clock. We'll go through some news items that have been happening and update you guys on what's happening in terms of the COVID breach situation. We know that file has now been sent to the DPP's office for ruling. We don't know quite yet how long that will take, but maybe we'll do a Ask Sandy segment this evening, because we haven't done that in a while, where you guys can just ask a bunch of questions. We're waiting on education to make a final announcement on what's happening for the Christmas holidays. In case you guys missed that article, we do have an article up about that, where basically our inside source has said, here are the calendar dates, and this is what it's going to look like. You're going to get a month, so 2 additional weeks for Christmas holiday, but they have to find that time from somewhere else. So they are planning to pull it during the summer so that the kids can make up for the time. So have a read of that article. I think the article makes it very clear that the Ministry of Education has not yet released anything publicly. So this information that we have is coming by way of our exclusive sources who are very much in the know. So they have provided us exact dates and everything. So have a perusal of that, folks, so that you can have those details and you can start to plan ahead, because waiting another week or even another couple days to try to confirm this, could mean a lot to parents who are trying to plan out their lives over the holiday season. So Alric, thank you so much once again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for allowing me on your show.
Anytime. So just a reminder to all candidates, if you are interested in, getting out there, having people know a little bit more about who you are, what you stand for, and why you're running by all means, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to have you come on the program and talk directly to the people. Some people are running for public office and they're actually shy, believe it or not. And I think to myself, once you've declared, you need to kind of put that shyness to the side and put yourself out there. And I know it's not easy, but it is a requirement. So just a quick reminder, one of our corporate sponsors, Miracle Brokers, they do Filipino boxes they do an entire container. This is a December one now that's about to get shipped off. So if you have a box that you would like to send off to the Philippines, folks, it is only $65 for, I believe, up to 200 pounds, which is actually a really good deal. But the container has to go full. So they had 10 more spaces. I know some of those are already gone. They will arrange free pickup of your boxes as well. They have the actual physical boxes that you can purchase from them and pack and get everything ready. So plan ahead, folks. Send a little care packet to your friends and family members back home to the Philippines. You can contact Miracle Brokers on 949-5989. And of course, Miracle Brokers has gone high tech, I've been told, and they now have available, you see that little barcode right there? If you take your smartphone and you take a photo of that barcode, it will actually allow you to save the contact details for Miracle Brokers. Isn't that pretty cool? And you can also WhatsApp them. They now have a WhatsApp business contact number where you can send them queries and information on WhatsApp. So Flashpoint says too many people are running for a paycheck. Well, Flashpoint, we will definitely continue to talk about that and exactly what that means and why, again, this is a reason why people need to be a little bit smarter about what they're doing. So please don't forget that the bulk waste cleanup is ongoing. So you guys can make sure you put your debris out to the street for that to be picked up by the relevant authorities. Big shout out to our Everybody's Business company that came by and visited us last week, Refresh, where you can get a number of home care items done around the place. They have a pick 3 and a pick 5 option where you can mix and match everything from power washing to painting and other minor repairs around the house. Of course, this is Cayman Mall Road, and we rely on your tips and information, which you guys do a fantastic job getting to us. So 324-1612 is the WhatsApp number to send us all of your breaking information. So please continue to do so. Whatever the source is, whatever the news is. And just trying to see what else we've got just by way of announcements for you guys. So, we are under marine and severe weather, but I got to tell you, yesterday actually wasn't that bad. I was expecting something worse. But hey, I'm not going to complain too loudly about that. Not too bad. So if you're not registered to vote yet, folks, please visit elections.ky to get registered. As Alec mentioned earlier in the program, it is very, very easy to go by the elections office yourself and get registered to vote there as well. And I know a lot of candidates who are running for public office, they tend to have, forms available. So, get out there and get registered. If you're in quarantine, folks, please remember, don't be stupid. Don't be a jackass. Don't put our lives at risk by breaching quarantine. Just stay put. That's the thing to do. And again, thank you guys so much for all of your comments. Someone sent me this poem yesterday, and I absolutely love this. And I just want to leave that on screen as we call it a morning segment. I'm off to court, folks, to watch a few cases. So definitely. By the way, let me just say, I've just finally received a response from Mr. Howell regarding the objectors, and he's clarified that the hearings of claims and objectors are proceeding in a similar fashion to that of summary court. The revising officer, the chief magistrate, has agreed for persons with a claim or objection to appear via video link. However, there's been no approval from the register officers for the proceedings to be carried live for the general public or for individuals who attend in person to live stream the proceedings. So there is that was the question that we just sent him. So we did receive a response to at least that query. Interesting. I guess we can have a discussion about that at some point, but that's what the procedure is. Yes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Howell. We look forward to getting a response to the other queries that we submitted a few weeks back. And that's all she wrote, folks. So please stay safe today, and I'll see you guys this evening.
Magandang araw po mga kababayan, Joy Anglin po. Nabili na po ba ninyo ang dish pack ng Miracle Brokers? Up to 200 pounds kaya pong ilagay dito. Halina po kayo, Christmas na sa Pilipinas, tamang-tama po para sa mga ate at kuya. Halina po kayo dito sa Miracle Brokers. Miski ano, pwede pong ilagay dito sa box. Pera lang po ang jowa nyo.
Contact us at 949-5989 or email us at info@miraclebrokers.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.